There is a sacred stage in every transformation where silence is not secrecy. It is protection. It is not because you're hiding something wrong. It is because something new inside you is still too fragile to be exposed to the noise of people who have not yet understood what is being born in you. Carl Jung understood that real transformation does not begin in public. It begins in the unconscious. It begins in the hidden places of the psyche, where old identities begin to collapse, where the shadow starts to speak, where the soul begins pulling you away from the life that once felt familiar but no longer feels true. And in this stage, one of the greatest mistakes people make is that they speak too soon. They announce the change before they have embodied it. They explain the vision before it has roots. They reveal the dream before it has strength. They share the wound before it has been integrated. They tell people what they are becoming before they have fully become it. And then they wonder why the energy begins to weaken. Why doubt enters? Why confusion returns? Why old patterns come back? Why certain people suddenly become critical, distant, mocking, suspicious, or quietly resistant. But the truth is this: not everyone who listens to your transformation is able to bless it. Some people can only understand you through the version of you they already know. They know the wounded you, the available you, the insecure you, the over-explaining you, the version of you who apologized too quickly, the version of you who tolerated too much, the version of you who needed approval, the version of you who did not yet know your own power. So when you begin to change, they may not see your growth as growth. They may experience it as a threat, because your transformation silently asks them to confront something within themselves. Your discipline reminds them of their excuses. Your peace reminds them of their chaos. Your boundaries remind them of their entitlement. Your self-respect reminds them of the old access they are losing. Your confidence reminds them of the power they once benefited from you not having. This is why, during transformation, silence becomes wisdom. Not everything needs to be announced. Not every decision needs to be explained. Not every dream needs to be exposed. Not every wound needs to be discussed. Not every spiritual shift needs to be shared. Not every new version of you needs permission from the old world. Some things must grow in the dark before they can survive in the light. A seed does not explain itself while it is underground. It does not tell the soil what it plans to become. It does not ask the surrounding stones whether it is allowed to break open. It simply grows, quietly, faithfully, privately. And when the time is right, what was hidden becomes undeniable. This is how real transformation works. You do not need to convince people that you're changing. You need to become so aligned with the change that your life speaks before your words do. Because the more you explain a transformation that has not yet fully formed, the more you expose it to forces that may not be able to hold it with care. Carl Jung's process of individuation is not a performance for the crowd. It is the private journey of becoming whole. It is the separation from the false self, the confrontation with the shadow, the integration of what was rejected, the return to your authentic center, the slow, painful, sacred movement from living as an adaptation to living as a soul. And because this process is so deep, it must be protected. You cannot let every opinion enter the womb of your becoming. You cannot allow every person to touch the part of you that is still healing. You cannot hand your vision to people who have never protected their own. You cannot expect those committed to your old identity to celebrate the birth of your new one. So today, we're going to explore 7 things you must keep private during your transformation. Not forever, not out of fear, not because you are better than anyone, but because your energy is sacred. Your process is sacred. Your becoming is sacred. And what is sacred must be guarded until it is strong enough to stand. Before we go deeper, subscribe to the Kingdom Within if this message already feels like it is speaking to the season you are living right now. This channel is for those who are ready to face the unconscious, integrate the shadow, and become the person they were always meant to be. Now, let us begin with the first thing you must keep private during your transformation. The first thing you must keep private during your transformation is your next move. Not every step needs an audience. Not every plan needs approval. Not every decision needs to be discussed with people who are not walking the same inner path. When you're transforming, your next move is not merely an action. It is an energetic shift. It is proof that something inside you has changed. You are no longer responding to life from the same wound. You are no longer choosing from the same fear. You're no longer asking the same people for permission. You're no longer staying loyal to the same old version of yourself. And because of that, your next move carries power. But power that is revealed too early can be weakened by the projections of others. You tell someone you are about to leave a toxic situation, and suddenly they plant fear in your mind. You tell someone you are starting a new project, and suddenly their doubt becomes louder than your own inner guidance. You tell someone you are changing your habits, and they quietly wait for you to fail so they can feel comfortable again. You tell someone you're stepping into a new identity, and they remind you of who you used to be. This is why you must understand something very important. People do not always respond to your plans. They respond to what your plans awaken in them. Your courage may awaken their fear. Your discipline may awaken their shame. Your ambition may awaken their insecurity. Your silence may awaken their need for control. Your independence may awaken their fear of losing access to you. So before your next move is strong enough to stand against outside energy, protect it. Do not speak it into rooms where it will be minimized. Do not place it in the hands of people who cannot hold vision. Do not explain it to those who only respect you when you remain predictable. In Jungian terms, the new self is often born while the old persona is dying. The persona is the mask you wore to belong. The agreeable one, the patient one, the one who tolerated more than you admitted, the one who never disappointed anyone, the one who made themselves understandable so others would not feel threatened. But transformation requires the mask to crack. And when the mask cracks, your next move may look strange to people who only love the mask. They may ask, "Why are you doing this now? Are you sure? That does not sound like you. You have changed. Who do you think you are?" But sometimes the fact that it does not sound like the old you is exactly the point. You are not trying to remain recognizable to the life that kept you small. You are trying to become faithful to the self that has been waiting beneath the role. So keep your next move private until it has momentum. Move quietly, study quietly, heal quietly, build quietly, detach quietly, prepare quietly. Let your discipline become louder than your announcement. Let your results speak after your energy has already shifted. There's a different strength in a person who stops explaining what they are about to do and simply begins doing it. The old self announces to receive validation. The new self moves to confirm alignment. The old self asks, "Do they believe in me?" The new self asks, "Am I being faithful to what I know?" The old self seeks witnesses. The new self seeks embodiment. This does not mean you should never receive guidance. There is wisdom in counsel. There is support in healthy connection. There is strength in being surrounded by people who can see you're becoming with clarity and love. But there is a difference between receiving wise guidance and exposing your next move to every opinion that has access to you. Not everyone deserves the blueprint. Not everyone needs the timing. Not everyone needs the reason. Not everyone needs to know what you are building before it is built. There are seasons when the most powerful sentence is, "I'm working on something," and nothing more. Because every time you explain too much, you leak energy. Every time you justify too much, you invite negotiation. Every time you reveal too soon, you give the old world a chance to pull you back before the new self has fully taken root. So if you are in a season of transformation, learn the power of quiet movement. Let people wonder. Let them misunderstand. Let them assume. Let them notice only after the change has already become visible. Because when your next move is private, your energy remains gathered, and gathered energy becomes force. Force becomes consistency. Consistency becomes identity. And identity becomes a reality that no longer needs to be announced. The first thing you must keep private is your next move. Because what is still becoming must be protected from what is still attached to who you used to be. The second thing you must keep private during your transformation is your pain before it has become wisdom. This does not mean you should suffer alone. It does not mean you should isolate yourself. It does not mean you should pretend you are strong when you are breaking inside. There are moments when you need support. There are moments when you need help. There are moments when you need someone safe to sit beside you while your heart is learning how to breathe again. But there is a sacred difference between sharing your pain with someone who can hold it and exposing your wound to people who will only use it, judge it, minimize it, gossip about it, or turn it into a weapon. During transformation, your pain is not just pain. It is raw material. It is the place where the old self is breaking open. It is the doorway through which the unconscious begins to reveal what has been hidden. And when something is still raw, it must be protected. A wound that is still open should not be handed to careless hands. A truth that is still trembling should not be placed before people who have no reverence for your healing. A heartbreak that is still bleeding should not be explained to those who are secretly pleased to see you weak. Carl Jung understood that suffering, when brought into consciousness, can become meaning. But before suffering becomes meaning, it is vulnerable. It can be distorted. It can be misunderstood. It can be turned into identity. It can be used by the ego as proof that life is cruel, that people cannot be trusted, that love is unsafe, that you are powerless, that the future will only repeat the past. This is why you must be careful where you place your pain. Not everyone deserves access to your most fragile places. Some people ask what happened not because they care, but because they want information. Some people listen only to compare. Some listen only to feel superior. Some listen only to confirm the version of you they already believe. Some listen only so they can later say, "I knew you were not as strong as you pretended to be." And some people cannot hold pain without projecting their own fear onto it. You tell them you are healing, and they tell you to move on. You tell them you are grieving, and they tell you it was not that serious. You tell them you are changing, and they tell you you are overreacting. You tell them you are tired, and they tell you everyone is tired. And suddenly, instead of healing, you begin defending your right to feel. This is why silence can become protection, because your pain does not need to be put on trial. Your wound does not need to win an argument. Your grief does not need to be approved by people who have never learned how to meet their own. During transformation, keep your pain close enough to understand it before you expose it to the world. Sit with it, write with it, pray with it, breathe with it. Listen to what it is trying to reveal. Ask, what did this pain come to teach me? What old pattern is being exposed? What part of me is asking to be seen? What boundary did I ignore? What truth did I already know but refuse to admit? What version of me is this pain trying to release? Pain becomes wisdom when it stops being only a wound and becomes a teacher. But that process takes time. It requires depth. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to stop asking only, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this revealing within me?" This is not blaming yourself. This is reclaiming your power. There's a difference between saying, "This pain is my fault," and saying, "This pain will not be wasted." One keeps you in shame. The other returns you to consciousness. The wounded self says, "They hurt me, so now I'm broken." The conscious self says, "They hurt me, but I will not let their unconsciousness become the definition of my life." The wounded self says, "I cannot trust anyone again." The conscious self says, "I will learn discernment, so I no longer confuse intensity with safety." The wounded self says, "This proves I am not worthy." The conscious self says, "This reveals where I was still seeking worth from someone unable to see me clearly." This is how pain becomes wisdom. Not by denying the wound, not by pretending it did not hurt, not by rushing forgiveness before truth has been honored, but by refusing to let the wound become the ruler of your future. Keep your pain private until you can speak from clarity instead of collapse. Until you can tell the story without needing everyone to validate it. Until you can understand what it taught you. Until you can see the pattern beneath the event. Until you can say, "This changed me, but it did not destroy me." There's a kind of power that comes when your pain is no longer a public performance, but a private initiation. You stop needing everyone to know how. You suffered. You stop explaining your scars to people who were not there when you survived them. You stop offering your deepest wounds to those who only understand surfaces. And slowly, Your pain becomes presence. People may feel that something in you has deepened. They may notice that you speak less, but carry more truth. They may sense that you are no longer available for the same games. They may not know the details. They do not need to, because the most powerful healing does not always announce itself. Sometimes it becomes visible through your standards, through your silence, through your boundaries, through the calm way you no longer enter what once consumed you, through the peace in your eyes when the past no longer owns your identity. This is why you must protect your pain during transformation, because what you are healing inside yourself may become the very wisdom that leads your next life. But if you expose it too early to the wrong people in the wrong rooms, it may be contaminated by judgment before it has time to become medicine. So be careful. Share with those who have earned sacred access. Speak to those who can listen without needing to control your process. Let yourself be supported by people who do not make your healing about them. But do not confuse vulnerability with exposure. Vulnerability is sacred when shared with the right soul. Exposure is dangerous when offered to the wrong crowd. The second thing you must keep private is your pain before it becomes wisdom, because not every wound should be witnessed by those who do not know how to honor what is healing. The third thing you must keep private during your transformation is your dream before it has roots. There is a stage where a dream is not yet strong enough to be exposed. It is still forming. It is still gathering energy. It is still becoming clear inside you. And during this stage, the wrong voice can do real damage. Not because your dream is weak, but because your relationship with the dream is still young. You may still be learning to believe in it. You may still be learning to see yourself as the kind of person who can carry it. You may still be breaking free from an old identity that told you to stay small, to be realistic, to not expect too much, to not want too much, to not become different from the people around you. So when you reveal the dream too early, you may place something sacred in front of people who can only see it through their own limitations. They may not attack you directly. Sometimes they only ask small questions that carry heavy doubt. Are you sure this is possible? What if it does not work? Who do you think will listen? Isn't that too risky? Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should be more realistic. And suddenly, their fear begins speaking inside your mind as if it were wisdom. This is why you must protect the dream until it has roots. A dream with roots does not depend on everyone's approval. A dream with roots can survive misunderstanding. A dream with roots can hear doubt without collapsing. A dream with roots has become part of your identity. But before that happens, silence is not fear. Silence is incubation. In Jungian terms, the dream is often a message from the deeper self. It may not arrive as a detailed plan. It may arrive as an image, a longing, a repeated thought, a strange pull towards something you cannot fully explain, a feeling that the life you are living is too small for the person you are becoming. And because this dream comes from a deeper layer of the psyche, not everyone will understand it. Some people only understand what is already familiar. They understand the old job, the old relationship, the old routine, the old personality, the old version of you who stayed inside the lines. But they may not understand the symbol that has appeared inside you. They may not understand the calling. They may not understand why something invisible feels more real to you than the visible life everyone else accepts. And if you ask for validation from people who have abandoned their own dreams, they may unconsciously ask you to abandon yours too. Not always with cruelty, sometimes with concern, sometimes with practicality, sometimes with love that is actually fear wearing a gentle face. This is why you must learn discernment. Not everyone who loves you can guide you. Not everyone who cares about you can see your future. Not everyone who has advice has vision. Some people can only advise you from the level of life they have accepted for themselves. And if you are not careful, you will mistake their ceiling for your instruction. You will shrink your dream so it fits inside their comfort. You will lower your vision so it does not disturb their peace. You will delay your calling because someone who never answered their own calling told you to be. Transformation requires you to become loyal to the voice within. Not reckless, not arrogant, not blind, but loyal. There is a difference between a fantasy and a soul-directed dream. A fantasy asks only to be admired. A soul-directed dream asks you to grow. A fantasy wants applause. A soul-directed dream requires discipline. A fantasy disappears when things become difficult. A soul-directed dream keeps returning, even after fear, delay, failure, and doubt. So if your dream keeps returning, listen, but protect it. Do not keep telling everyone what you're going to build. Build. Do not keep explaining what you are becoming. Become. Do not keep asking people whether they can see what you see. Strengthen your vision until their inability to see it no longer shakes you. This is especially important during the early stage of transformation, because the old self will look for reasons to return. It will use other people's doubt as evidence. It will say, "See, they do not believe in you. See, this is too hard. See, maybe you were foolish. See, maybe you should stay where you are." And if your dream has not yet grown roots, you may believe the old self. So keep it private. Write it down. Pray over it. Study for it. Make small moves toward it. Let it become real through action before you ask the world to understand it. Because action protects a dream better than explanation. Every small step says to your unconscious, "This is not just a wish. This is who we are becoming." Every quiet hour of preparation strengthens the new identity. Every private act of discipline builds trust between you and the future self. And one day, the dream will not need to be announced. It will be visible. People will see the fruit and ask when it began. But they will not know the silent nights. They will not know the private decisions. They will not know the moments when you almost gave up. They will not know the prayers, the notes, the inner battles, the mornings you chose the dream even when no one was watching. That is why the dream becomes sacred. Not because it was easy, but because it was protected until it became strong. So if you're carrying something new inside you, do not rush to expose it. Let grow roots first. Let it become part of your nervous system. Let it become part of your discipline. Let it become part of your identity. Let it become so deeply yours that no careless comment can take it from you. The third thing you must keep private is your dream before it has roots. Because what is born from a soul must be protected from the noise of those who only understand the old version of you. The fourth thing you must keep private during your transformation is your spiritual shift before it is integrated. There are moments in life when something opens inside you. You begin seeing differently. You feel less interested in old conversations. You become sensitive to energy you once ignored. You start noticing patterns, signs, dreams, synchronicities, and inner movements that feel too meaningful to dismiss. You may feel as if your soul is waking up from a long sleep. And when this happens, it is natural to want to tell people. You want to say, "I am changing. I see things differently now. I cannot explain it, but something inside me has shifted. I do not feel like the same person anymore." But not everyone can meet a spiritual awakening with reverence. Some people will mock what they do not understand. Some will reduce it to imagination. Some will call it a phase. Some will try to pull you back into the version of you they could explain. Some will become uncomfortable because your awakening reminds them of their own inner sleep. This is why a spiritual shift must be protected until it becomes integrated. Because awakening without integration can become confusion. You may feel everything deeply, but not yet know how to live from it. You may receive insights, but not yet know how to ground them. You may see old patterns clearly, but not yet have the strength to leave them. You may feel detached from the old life, but not yet stable in the new one. This is a delicate stage, and if you expose it too soon, the wrong reactions can create doubt, shame, or spiritual inflation. Some people will make you doubt your experience. Others may encourage you to turn it into an identity before it has become wisdom. But Jung would remind us that the spiritual life must be grounded in the psyche. An awakening must not become another mask. It must become integration. It must change how you live, how you speak, how you choose, how you love, how you handle power, how you treat your own shadow, how you respond when no one is watching. Because the goal is not to appear awakened. The goal is to become more whole. So keep the early stage private. Let the insight mature. Let the dream The symbols speak. Let the silence teach you. Let the new awareness prove itself through your actions. A spiritual shift is not measured by how much you talk about it. It is measured by how deeply it transforms your character. Are you becoming more honest, more grounded, more compassionate, more discerning, more responsible for your energy, more capable of telling the truth without hatred, more able to love without abandoning yourself, more willing to face your shadow instead of projecting it onto others? That is integration. And until the shift becomes integrated, protect it. Not everyone needs to know what God, the unconscious, the soul, or life is revealing to you. Some revelations are meant to be lived before they are spoken. Some awakenings lose their power when they are turned into performance too soon. Some inner changes are so sacred that they require silence until your life can carry them. So if you are in this stage, do not rush. You do not need to explain your awakening to everyone. You do not need to convince anyone that you are changing. You do not need to make people believe in the inner world that is opening inside you. Live it, ground it, test it. Let it humble you. Let it make you more truthful. Let it make you more whole. The fourth thing you must keep private is your spiritual shift before it is integrated. Because what comes from the depths must be lived with reverence before it is spoken with confidence. Hashtag roteiro. Bloco 4. Hashtag 5. Keep your boundaries private until they become non-negotiable ***. The fifth thing you must keep private during your transformation is your boundary before it becomes non-negotiable. A boundary is not just something you say. It is something you become. Many people announce boundaries too early, before the boundary has become real inside their body. They say, I will never allow this again. I am done with this pattern. I'm choosing myself now. I'm not going back. But deep inside, they are still negotiating, still hoping the other person will understand, still waiting for permission, still afraid of disappointing someone, still wondering if they're being too harsh, still confusing guilt with wrongdoing, still feeling responsible for how others react to their self-respect. And because the boundary is not yet rooted, the wrong person can talk them out of it. One emotional message, one accusation, one dramatic reaction, one silent treatment, one sentence like, you have changed, and suddenly the boundary begins to collapse. This is why some boundaries must be built privately before they are spoken publicly. You must first become clear within yourself. You must decide what is no longer acceptable before you try to explain it to people who benefit from you having no limits. Because some people do not fear your words. They fear your consistency. They have heard you say no before. They have heard you say you're tired. They have heard you say things need to change. But they also know where the old door is. They know guilt opens it. They know confusion opens it. They know your compassion opens it. They know your fear of being misunderstood opens it. They know your desire to be good opens it. So if your boundary is not private first, it may become a debate. And a boundary that becomes a debate is often a boundary that has not yet become embodied. Carl Jung would have understood this as the struggle between the persona and the self. The persona wants to remain acceptable. The self wants to become true. The persona asks, how will they see me? The self asks, what is real? The persona says, do not upset anyone. The self says, do not abandon yourself. And during transformation, these two voices may fight inside you. This is why you must take your boundary into silence before you take it into conversation. Sit with it. Write it down. Feel what it costs. Feel what it protects. Feel who you become when you honor it. Feel who you remain when you betray it. Ask yourself, what am I no longer willing to normalize? What pattern keeps draining my spirit? What behavior have I been calling love when it is actually control? What have I been tolerating because I am afraid of being alone? What version of me must die for this boundary to live? These questions will show you the truth. Because a boundary is not only about other people. It is also about the part of you that kept saying yes. The part of you that ignored the red flags. The part of you that explained too much. The part of you that stayed too long. The part of you that believed love must be earned through endurance. And when you see that part clearly, do not shame it. Understand it. That part of you is trying to survive. But survival is not the same as freedom. And now, If you're transforming, you must speak to that part with. Understand why we tolerated this. I understand why we were afraid to leave. I understand why we stayed quiet. I understand why we tried to be easy to love. But we are not available for self-abandonment anymore. This is how the boundary becomes rooted. Not as anger, not as revenge, not as performance, but as inner alignment. Once the boundary is rooted, you do not need to explain it endlessly. You do not need to convince people it is valid. You do not need to argue with someone who only respects your limits when they agree with them. You simply live it, calmly, clearly, consistently. And this is what changes your life. Not the announcement, the embodiment. People may test the boundary. Let them. The old pattern may try to return. Let it reveal itself. Your guilt may rise. Let it pass through you without making it your master. Because every time you honor a boundary, you teach your nervous system a new truth. My peace is allowed to matter. My energy is allowed to be protected. My no is allowed to exist without a long explanation. My transformation is allowed to disappoint the people who depended on my lack of limits. That is powerful. The fifth thing you must keep private is your boundary before it becomes non-negotiable. Because when a boundary is still forming, it needs silence, clarity, and inner authority before it can survive the pressure of the old world. Hashtag 6. Keep your success private until your identity can hold it ***. The sixth thing you must keep private during your transformation is your success before your identity can hold it. This may sound strange. Most people think success should be shared immediately. They want to post it, announce it, prove it, show the people who doubted them. Make the world see that they are finally becoming something different. And there is nothing wrong with celebrating growth. There is nothing wrong with being grateful. There is nothing wrong with allowing people who truly love you to witness your joy. But during transformation, early success is delicate because sometimes the ego wants to use success before the soul has integrated it. The ego says, now they will respect me. Now they will regret underestimating me. Now I can prove I was worthy. Now I can show them who I am. But the self asks something deeper. Can you hold this success without becoming dependent on external validation? Can you receive without guilt? Can you grow without needing revenge? Can you rise without losing humility? Can you let success change your life without letting it become your identity? This is important because success can awaken the shadow. It can awaken pride, fear, guilt, anxiety, imposter syndrome, the need to prove, the fear of losing what has arrived, the fear that people will judge you, the fear that you will outgrow the relationships that were built around your struggle. So before you expose every victory, let yourself become stable inside it. Let success feel safe in your body. Let receiving feel normal. Let growth become identity, not performance. Some people sabotage success because they reveal it too early to people who cannot bless it. They tell the wrong person, and suddenly they feel watched. They feel pressure. They feel envy. They feel doubt. They feel the need to keep proving. And what should have been a sacred confirmation becomes a public burden. This is why success sometimes needs privacy. Not because you are hiding, but because you're learning to receive without leaking your energy. You are learning to win without asking the crowd to confirm your worth. You are learning to let abundance enter quietly. You are learning to let the new life become normal before the old world comments on it. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious contains not only what we fear, but also the parts of us we have not yet learned to embody. For some people, failure feels familiar. Struggle feels familiar. Being overlooked feels familiar. But being seen, being chosen, being successful, being respected, being supported, that can feel unfamiliar. And what feels unfamiliar can feel unsafe, even when it is good. So when success comes, pause. Do not rush to prove it. Do not rush to explain it. Do not rush to use it against anyone. Let's settle. Ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming through this success? Can I receive this without guilt? Can I remain grounded while I grow? Can I enjoy this without fearing it will disappear? Can I let this victory strengthen my purpose instead of inflating my ego? These questions help success become integrated. Because the goal is not merely to achieve. The goal is to become the kind of person who can carry what you ask for. Many people receive a new opportunity but still think from the old identity. They receive more money but still live from fear. They receive love but still expect abandonment. They receive visibility but still feel like an imposter. They receive peace but still search for chaos. So their outer life changes, but their inner frequency remains the same. And eventually, they return to the old pattern. This is why success must be held with consciousness. You do not need to announce every blessing while it is still forming. You do not need to show every door that opens. You do not need to prove every result. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is receive quietly and keep building. Let the fruit grow before you invite everyone to the garden. Let the foundation strengthen before you show the house. Let your identity expand before you expose it to the eyes of those who still know you only by your struggle. The sixth thing you must keep private is your success before your identity can hold it. Because what you have prayed for must be protected long enough for you to become the person who can sustain it. Hashtag 7. Keep your deepest transformation private until your life reveals it. The seventh thing you must keep private during your transformation is the deepest transformation itself. The part no one can fully see. The part happening in your thoughts, in your nervous system, in your prayers, in your silence, in the way you no longer react, in the way you no longer chase, in the way you no longer explain, in the way you no longer collapse when someone refuses to understand you. This transformation does not need to be announced. It needs to be lived, because the deepest change is not always visible at first. At first, it may look like silence. It may look like distance. It may look like rest. It may look like fewer conversations. It may look like saying no. It may look like not responding to what used to trigger you. It may look like choosing peace when the old self would have chosen chaos. People may not understand it. They may think nothing is happening. But inside, everything is being rearranged. You're no longer the same person meeting the same life. You are no longer allowing the same wound to choose your future. You are no longer letting the same fear define your limits. You're no longer asking the same old world to approve the person you are becoming. This is the private miracle of transformation. It happens before the world has evidence. It happens before people clap. It happens before results become obvious. It happens in the hidden place where the soul decides, I cannot betray myself anymore. And from that decision, everything begins to change. You stop needing to explain every shift. You stop telling people how healed you are. You stop proving that you have grown. You stop trying to convince people that you are different. Because real transformation has a presence. It speaks through your energy, through your choices, through your standards, through your peace, through what you no longer tolerate, through what you no longer chase, through what you no longer fear losing. One day, people will notice. They will notice that the old manipulation no longer works. They will notice that guilt no longer pulls you back. They will notice that you do not argue the way you used to. They will notice that your silence is not weakness anymore. They will notice that your peace has become more important than their approval. They will notice that you're not trying to be chosen. You are choosing. And when they notice, you will not need to explain. Your life will be the explanation. This is the power of private transformation. It becomes undeniable because it is embodied, not performed, not announced, not posted for validation. Embodied. And what is embodied cannot be taken away by someone's opinion. This is why Jung's path of individuation is so sacred. It is not about becoming impressive. It is about becoming whole. It is about no longer living as a mask, no longer being ruled by the shadow unconsciously, no longer abandoning the self to maintain the persona, no longer living for the gaze of the crowd. It is the return to the center, the kingdom within. And when you return to that center, the world may not understand you immediately. That is okay. You are not transforming to be understood by everyone. You are transforming to be true. So keep your deepest transformation private until your life reveals it. Let your energy change quietly. Let your standards rise quietly. Let your healing deepen quietly. Let your confidence return quietly. Let your relationship with yourself become sacred quietly. Let the old version of you disappear quietly. And when people ask what happened, you may simply say, I started choosing myself. Nothing more is required. The seventh thing you must keep private is your deepest transformation until your life reveals it. Because the most powerful change does not need an announcement. It becomes visible through the person you can no longer pretend not to be. Hashtag roteiro. Bloco 5 final. Hashtag the power of becoming quiet while everything inside you changes. There comes a point in your transformation when silence is no longer emptiness. It becomes evidence. Evidence that you're no longer begging to be understood. Evidence that you're no longer explaining what your soul already knows. Evidence that you are no longer exposing sacred things to careless hands. Evidence that you are finally learning how to protect the life that is forming inside you. You do not need to tell everyone your next move. Move. You do not need to explain every wound. Heal. You do not need to announce every dream. Build. You do not need to prove every spiritual shift. Integrate. You do not need to justify every boundary. Live it. You do not need to display every success. Sustain it. You do not need to describe every transformation. Become it. This is the difference between performance and embodiment. Performance needs witnesses. Embodiment needs truth. And during transformation, truth often grows best in silence. Carl Jung understood that the deepest changes in a human being happen beneath the surface long before they become visible to the world. The seed splits in darkness. The roots grow where no one claps. The psyche reorganizes itself in hidden places. The old self begins to dissolve in quiet moments no one else sees. And one day, what was private becomes undeniable. People may ask why you seem different. They may wonder why you no longer react the same way. They may notice that you do not explain as much, that you do not chase as much, that you do not tolerate as much, that you do not collapse when they misunderstand you, that you no longer give access to every person who wants your energy. They may call it distance, but it is discernment. They may call it coldness, but it is peace. They may call it arrogance, but it is self-respect. They may say, you have changed, and maybe, for the first time, you will not feel the need to defend that change. Because yes, you have changed. You changed because the old way of living was costing you your soul. You changed because the role you were playing became too small. You changed because your body was tired of carrying what your spirit had already outgrown. You changed because the unconscious became conscious. You changed because the shadow asked to be integrated. You changed because your true self finally began to return. And that return does not need everyone's permission. So protect your becoming. Protect your silence. Protect your dream. Protect your healing. Protect your peace. Protect the version of you that is still learning how to stand without apology. Because not everything sacred should be shared immediately. Some things must be lived first. Some things must be strengthened first. Some things must be proven to yourself before they are shown to the world. There is power in saying less. There is power in letting people misunderstand you while you remain faithful to what you know. There is power in not correcting every assumption. There is power in not revealing every battle. There is power in not explaining every boundary. There is power in allowing your life to speak when the time is right. This is not secrecy from fear. This is privacy from wisdom. And there is a difference. Fear hides because it is ashamed. Wisdom protects because it understands value. Fear says, if they know, they will reject me. Wisdom says, not everyone has earned access to what is sacred. Fear says, I must prove myself. Wisdom says, I will become so grounded that proof becomes unnecessary. Fear says, I need them to understand. Wisdom says, I need to remain true. This is the stage of transformation where you stop leaking energy through explanation. You stop handing your future to people who are still attached to your past. You stop inviting opinions into places where only devotion belongs. You stop allowing the old world to inspect the new self before it has fully formed. You become quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that your energy is not public property. Your process is not entertainment. Your healing is not a performance. Your dream is not a debate. Your boundary is not a negotiation. Your success is not a weapon. Your transformation is not an announcement. It is a sacred return to yourself. So remember the 7 things. Keep your next move private until it has momentum. Keep your pain private until it becomes wisdom. Keep your dreams private until they have roots. Keep your spiritual shifts private until they are integrated. Keep your boundaries private until they become non-negotiable. Keep your success private until your identity can hold it. Keep your deepest transformation private until your life reveals it. If you can practice this, something powerful begins to happen. Your energy gathers. Your mind becomes clearer. Your nervous system becomes calmer. Your decisions become stronger. Your relationship with yourself becomes more sacred. You begin to feel less pulled by the noise around you. You begin to trust your own timing. You begin to move without needing applause. You begin to grow without needing permission. And eventually, your transformation becomes impossible to deny. Not because you told everyone, but because you became different. You walk differently. You choose differently. You love differently. You leave differently. You rest differently. You speak differently. You no longer carry the same hunger for validation. You no longer confuse being seen with being safe. You no longer mistake exposure for connection. You no longer let everyone enter the inner temple of your becoming. This is maturity. This is individuation. This is the kingdom within. The person who can keep sacred things private is a person who has begun to understand their own value. They no longer throw their pearls into every room. They no longer mistake attention for support. They no longer believe that every person who listens is capable of honoring what they hear. They become selective, not bitter, selective, not closed, protected, not superior, grounded. Because transformation does not require you to become available to everyone. It requires you to become deeply available to yourself. So if you're in a season where something inside you is changing, do not rush to explain it. Let it grow. Let it deepen. Let it become part of your body, your choices, your rhythm, your standards, your presence. Let the old version of you dissolve quietly. Let the new version of you rise quietly. Let people notice when they notice. Let them ask when the evidence is already visible. Let your life answer. And when you feel tempted to tell the wrong people too much, pause, breathe, and say to yourself, not everything sacred needs to be shared. My next move is protected. My healing is protected. My dream is protected. My peace is protected. My transformation is protected. I do not need to announce what I am becoming. I only need to become it. This is where your power returns. Not in proving, not in explaining, not in being understood by everyone, but in becoming so rooted in your own truth that outside noise can no longer pull you out of alignment. The world does not need to know everything that is happening inside you. Some parts of your transformation belong only to you and God, only to you and your soul, only to you and the silence that has held you while you were becoming. And one day, when the change is complete enough to be seen, people will realize something happened. But they will not know the full story. They will not know the private battles. They will not know the moments you almost returned to the old pattern. They will not know the nights you chose silence instead of self-betrayal. They will not know the mornings you kept building while no one believed. They will only see the fruit. And that is enough, because the fruit does not need to explain the root. If this message spoke to something deep within you, subscribe to the kingdom within. Leave a comment with the words, I protect my transformation. If you are ready to move in silence, guard your energy, and become the person your old life can no longer recognize. And remember, the most powerful transformation is not always the one everyone sees. Sometimes it is the one happening quietly, in a hidden place, in the inner world, in the sacred silence where the old self disappears, and the true self finally begins to rise.